Okay, hello everyone. My name is Bill F. I'm a fellow traveler and member of ACA. My home group is the Tuesday Toolbox, and I've been in the program for about 8 years. Thank you very much for allowing me to come to this meeting and share my experience, strength, and hope. I hope there's something I can say that will help people in their journey. This has been a game changer for me, a life changer, and I just want to talk about things in general. I wrote some stuff down. Give a little background about who I am. Um, you know, I grew up in a family that was dysfunctional. Go figure, right? Okay. One of the things about my family is my it was a lot of trauma in there, a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff going on that was just chaos. My mother had married a man, my stepfather, who was an alcoholic and an angry drunk. He could not maintain anything that even remotely looked like security. We were constantly moving from place to place, and not just moving, but being evicted. Um, and he was an angry man. He used to beat my mother, and you name it, go down the list, it happened. And because of that, one of the things I learned how to do was I learned that for me to survive in that situation, I could not be emotional. I had to always see where he was coming from, understand what he was about to do, and prepare to protect myself against that. Fear was always constant, but I didn't show fear because to show fear would be to show weakness. And to show weakness is to become a victim or become a target. So I always showed strength, even though I had no, as a child, what kind of strength can you possibly have? And the best strength I had was two things. One, become invisible, not become, something that'd be the target that he would take, focus on. And two, to be good for my mother, because as far as I was concerned, she had enough to deal with dealing with him. So what I wanted to do instead was you know, allow her one less thing to worry about. And in doing so, the whole abandonment issue began at that point in time. We would, as a kid, I would come home sometimes, and the power would be off, the phone would be off, there'd be an eviction notice on the door. And as a child who's growing up to having to deal with that, I couldn't be a child. I had to be an adult. So in being an adult, I was usually the first one that had to handle these situations because there was no one else home. And in some cases, the eviction would already be in effect. So I would come home and the door would be locked. And I would have to find someone, whoever was in charge of the building or the apartment or whatever. I would go to them and say, listen, be a child. I'm a 9-year-old kid and to get in the house, I have to go to the bathroom, or I have to get my stuff for school, my school books or whatever. And when I would go in, if I could do it, I'd get my mother's jewelry or something like that, things that I needed just to continue. But, as a 9-year-old kid, you shouldn't be thinking like that, but that's how I was thinking. I was always thinking about what's the best thing to do next to get us out of the situation. Because of that, I have very little left over from my childhood. No items, no memories. I did a lot of disassociation because, my life was just, I didn't want to experience what was going on in my life. So disassociation, daydreaming, creating a world of my own was how I dealt with everything that was going on. When things got really bad, what they would do is they would drop me off at my grandmother's house. And, that I would stay with her. She was safety. Sometimes I stayed there for a week, sometimes a month. The longest I stayed at my grandmother's was 2 years. And as a child, I thought I had done something wrong. I thought I had been bad. And that's why they got rid of me, because they didn't want to, they didn't want to deal with a bad kid. That was the best I could understand as a child. I didn't understand that my mother was trying to get me someplace safe. I thought they didn't want me anymore. And that's what came across. So I started to become that person that I thought everyone would want me to be, so they wouldn't abandon me. I started people pleasing. You tell me who you want me to be so you don't leave me, and I'll be that person. Just don't leave me. Just don't abandon me. And I did this with everyone. And one of the things I learned very quickly is because we never stayed anywhere longer than like a month, 2 months, maybe 6 months. I learned how to win people over as quickly as possible. I realized these relationships weren't deep. I realized these relationships won't last. I realized that within 6 months I would never meet these people again. But in the meantime, I needed contact with another human being. And what I started realizing as in now, I didn't realize it there, attention, even bad attention, is better than no attention at all. So one of the things I did was I tried to get attention from other people, either by acting up or whatever I needed to do, being a class clown, whatever. I wanted the attention. And sometimes that meant acting out. I remember once in school, I always be act out, I always had the smart aleck conversation and stuff like that. And in school, they used to line us up after we go out for recess, and they would give a head count, and I would always say something silly. And then one day during a head count, I didn't say anything. I remember my teacher did something that was so unusual. She immediately stopped what she was doing, came over and gave me a hug and said, "Thank you." And that was the first time I realized I could get attention by not looking for attention, but I wasn't around that very much. So that didn't happen. Um, I can go on. There's other things going on. You basically tick off a box on the larger list, and that happened to me. You know, I'm sorry. I'm going to mention something real quick, and if it triggers someone, I apologize. One of the things I was doing, looking for love from a mother figure, is I used to seek attention from older women, and unfortunately, what would happen is, fortunately, healthy women understood I was looking for a mother figure. Unhealthy women thought I was looking for something else, and that started up at the age of 9, and it continued well into my late teens, and that really damaged me with my relationship with women. I did not know how to have a relationship with women that was healthy until until ACA. Until ACA. Anyway, I came out of I was very dysfunctional. I didn't know how to live in the world. And what I did was I leaned on alcohol and drugs to help me deal with things. And that only worked for so long before even that was causing me problems. And I ended up in AA. And in AA, I started recovery in a different formal way. And, I learned how to get sober. But the problem with being sober for me in AA was now I still had all those defects of character that still was causing me a lot of pain and suffering. I didn't know how to deal with that. I went to the work. I dove into the work. Dove into the work, and it gave me a certain level of recovery. But I still didn't feel like it was something was still missing. It wasn't money. It wasn't sex. It wasn't all those things. It was something was still missing. I didn't feel right. And what I used to do all the time, I used to beat myself up all the time because I couldn't have healthy relationships with people. I didn't know how to get people to like me. One of the things I used to do to get people to like me is I used to try to fix people. What is your problem? Let me fix your problem. If I fix your problem, okay, then you need me. And if you need me, you won't leave me. So I was really good at fixing people's problems. But that was the only thing that I had as far as the relationship with that person. So what would happen is after I fixed them, whatever the problem may have been, they didn't need me anymore. We didn't have a connection beyond that. So what would happen is they would abandon me. I was actually repeating my childhood trauma as an adult. It was a self-perpetuating, self-continuation of my own childhood. I had basically reconstructed my family dynamic as an adult. So my sponsor, I went to Al-Anon because, Al-Anon's about relationships, but that didn't work either. Al-Anon wasn't the solution. And I got to the point where I was just depressed. I felt life wasn't, I was giving up. I was like, if this is going to be what I'm living through, I might as well start drinking and drinking. And my sponsor said, I talked to him once. I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm giving. And he said, well, I want you to read something. And he gave me the laundry list. And I read the laundry list. I went through the laundry list and I was, this is it. This is what's going on in my life. Why haven't you given this to me sooner? I have got a therapist. I've done all these things. And he said, you weren't ready for it yet. Now you are. So I sat down with the laundry list and I went through it. And I started realizing, all the things that happened. I understood that I had trauma as a child. See, that's the thing. I knew I had trauma as a child. I did not know that just because I had knowledge of that trauma, that it was still affecting me as an adult. It was still guiding me in my behavior. I thought knowledge in and of itself was enough. Because like in alcohol, you're an alcoholic, stop drinking. Problem solved. Not the same with ACA. ACA is the root of all the other problems I had. ACA was the beginning, not the end. The trauma, childhood trauma was the beginning, and the ACA is the end. I should correct that. So what I started to notice is that in ACA, well, not in ACA, as an adult, there'd be certain situations that would just start to trigger me, or certain situations that I would start feeling anxiety. And the way I felt anxiety was in the small of my back. The small of my back would get tense, and I realized, that was a trigger. That was me being triggered. And what it was basically was something something that was going on in the present was reminding me physically of something that happened in my past. Subconsciously, my body remembered. Consciously, I didn't. But my body, the issues in the tissues. And when issues came up, I felt it in my tissues. And I started to learn that was the time to stop, pause, and say, what is going on now that reminds me of something happened in my childhood? Let me look at that and then look back at what's going on right now and tell myself that this is not the same thing that happened as a kid. This is something that's completely different. It's reminding you of that. You're okay now. It's not the same thing. And now you're an adult. You're not a child who can't do anything about this. You're an adult, and you can reparent yourself and protect yourself against this. You can remove yourself from this situation. You don't have to stay here and endure. You can leave and heal. So what I began to do is I began to accept my feelings. I didn't deny them. As a child, you denied my feelings. I denied my fear. I denied my anxiety. I denied all those things. I pretended that everything was going right. As an adult, I don't do that anymore. I'm grounded in the present. I'm not a prisoner of my past. The past was a prison for me of my emotions, my feelings, and my actions. ACA has released me from that and has allowed me to have different outcomes. I learned to reparent myself and change the script. So one of the things I did was I realized that when I was beating myself up all the time, when something went wrong, okay, what was going on was it was my critical parent. My mother didn't have an opportunity to actually parent me. All she had the time to do was when I did something wrong, she would point it out. Don't do this, Bill. Do this. Don't do this, Bill. Do this. And that was the parenting I received as a child. So as an adult, okay, when I did something wrong, I used to beat myself up continuously, ruthlessly. And I just beat myself up. And in ACA, I realized that was my mother's voice. That was her telling me, being a critical parent, not because she was mad at me or angry at me, because that's all the time she had was to teach me how not to do things, but not teach me how to do things, not to show me love and compassion and encouragement. She only had time to tell me when I did something wrong. So that's all the parenting I had. So when I did something wrong with an adult, that's what I heard, that critical parent in my head. And then one of the other things I learned about myself is my inner teen. My inner teen protected myself, protected my inner child against the things that were going on in my life. And the way he did that was problem solved. If I could solve a problem, then I was worthy. If I was worthy, I wouldn't be abandoned. One of the other things is my inner child, my inner teen rather, controlled things. I thought that if I could control everything that was going on around me, that you couldn't hurt me because I can control the outcome. So I can try to control everything, people, places, whatever. And my analogy of that is basically Jello. Okay, I could I can hold on to Jello if I cradle it in my hands, but if I try to control Jello by squeezing it tight and tighter, all Jello will do is slip through my fingers, and I'll lose it. I can't control by holding things tightly. I can only control things by holding them gently and not trying to control the outcome, not trying to control it at all. And one of the other things I used to do is I used to try to manage everything. One of the things I've learned in ACA is I don't have to chair the meetings. I don't have to be the one in control of the meetings. In fact, I allow other people to control the meetings because that way I could be in the meeting and actually recover. Because the other behavior is not my recovery. The other behavior is repeating my childhood or trying to protect myself, and that's not what I want to do. And also the other thing is, as a child, one of the things I always did was I never asked for help because that did two things. One, it showed I was weak, and two, it allowed people to control me. At least I thought so. Because that's what happened as a child. If I showed weakness of any kind, then someone can take advantage of that. And they can control me. I always look for affirmations from outside of myself. I needed you to tell me I was doing the right thing. I needed you to tell me that I was a good boy. I needed you to tell me all these different things. When I meant by you, I meant anyone on the outside. And I realized no one I will never please everyone. So I will never be good. I will always be doing something wrong. I used to beat myself up about that all the time because, I have to be this person, this person, this person with this person, this situation. I was never being my true self. I didn't know who I was, and I couldn't save myself. And the other thing that I realized is I couldn't show my true self because people didn't like who I was. So I had to remain invisible to stay in the middle of the herd to be accepted. For people to like me, I couldn't be me. And being me, I had to keep me invisible so that I'd be accepted, so people wouldn't abandon me, so people wouldn't leave me. In ACA, what I've learned now is I'm trying to get away from the laundry list and move closer to the promises. That's the life I want to live, in the promises. So one of the things I did was I've done the literature. It took me 2 years to go through the Loving Parent Guidebook with a group of people. And I'm going to read off some of the stuff I said in the Loving Parent Guidebook because this is part of my recovery, doing the actual work in the workbooks. One of the things I wrote was, I am angry I did not have the support I needed to be heard, seen, and be happy. I am angry I did not have the stability to be secure emotionally, financially, and in relationships. I wish I could have been able to develop my true identity rather than the identity I thought would keep me from being abandoned. Because of the trauma of my childhood, I skipped being a child and the healthy emotional development of learning personal interrelationships. I became a pseudo adult capable of quickly reading people and their motives. I problem solve and become emotionally detached during crisis situations. These are things that I had to put down on paper to know who I had become, not who I wanted to be. Okay, to reflect on what needed my own parents and feel safe and confident. One of the things I realized, I'll come back to that. Letting go of my laundry list traits allows me to both grow closer to the promises and embrace becoming a loving parent to myself and to others. One of the things that happened was in an ACA meeting when I sat down, because I was still in denial that the trauma had affected me. But one day I was sitting down and I was thinking about my childhood. We had read a part about what a healthy childhood should be in The Loving Parent. And when I read what a healthy childhood should be, and I reflected on what my old childhood was, I just started to sob. I broke down and started crying because I realized what I had been denied. What I had been denied, what I should have received and I didn't receive. And when I realized just how much that affected me, I just started to weep. That sobbing, snot nose dripping, open mouth, sucking in air, crying in the middle of a meeting. And no one did anything. They let me cry because that was the beginning of my healing. That was when I finally started to grieve what had happened to me as a child. I started to actually start to recover. The first thing I had to do was to accept the fact that my childhood was a shit show. And once I realized that, then I could accept that all the things that happened to me happened. And it wasn't my fault. My life, the way it had turned out, was not my fault. There's no other way it could have turned out. And I wasn't alone. There were other people that went through the same thing. And when I heard that from other people, I could just allow the healing to begin. Up until that point, I wasn't really in a position because I didn't have the tools to handle the fact that my life as a child was a shit show. The way I handled it, the tools I had to handle that was alcohol and drugs. But now I'm recovered with a bunch of other people around me who went through the same thing. I wasn't alone. I had other people who knew what I had gone through, just like the other people knew about alcohol and drugs and everything else. I have a bunch of people now who also said, we understand what you went through. We went through it too. You're not alone. We're here together to help each other as fellow travelers. I also realized that my critical parent does not have to parent me by pointing out when I do something wrong or lecturing me on how to become a better person. I try to reparent myself from my critical parent. Big mistake. Big mistake. I had to find a loving parent first to reparent me before I could do that. When you guys talk about loving parent, I was looking at you guys. What are you talking about? Loving parent. But the fact of the matter is, initially, I was trying to parent my own son the way I was parented. And the results was horrible. At one point, he was living in Australia, and I told him, if you got straight B's, I'm come and visit him. And he didn't get a straight B's. So I said to him, okay, we had understanding. If you got straight B's, I would come visit you. You didn't get straight B's, I'm not coming to visit you. And the result of that was he just suddenly just dropped the phone, ran out into the yard, and started sobbing hysterically. And his mother got on the phone and said, what the hell did you say to your son? And I said, well, I was trying to encourage him by telling him that if he got straight B's, I would come visit. And he didn't get straight B's. And she said, what the hell is wrong with you? You don't say that to children. What is wrong with you? And I said, oh, well, I'll fix it. Just give him on the phone. I'll fix it. She says, no, you don't get to talk to him anymore. And she hung the phone up on me, which is the best thing she could have done. Okay. I got into ACA soon after that and started working on myself. And I started realizing that the way to parent people is not in that method. You know, you have to show love, encouragement. I had to show him all the things that I didn't receive. When he turned 18, he came over to 17. He was going to turn 18. He was going to come over to visit me to get his US citizenship. And he came over, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Dad, I had given up on you. But Mom told me to come over to give you a second chance." And by this time, I had been in the ACA for a while. And the first thing I did was I sat him down and I told him my story. And I said, "I am so sorry. I'm doing the best I can, but I didn't know how to do it the right way. You know, it's a learning experience, and I think I know how to do it better." And he was angry at me, and I let him be angry because he had a right to be angry. And after being with me for a while, he argued about everything with me. It could be light outside, and he said it was dark. It would be raining, and he said it was sunny. It was just that type of thing. And by the end of the time he spent here, he finally left and said, "Dad, I love you." Because I had the ability to show him love the way I wasn't showing myself by being a loving parent to him. And that was the loving parent I gave to myself. Anyway, you know, that was the beginning. And he came back over. He paid his own way back over. That was pretty cool. So I will discover my real identity by loving and accepting myself. My self-esteem will increase as I no longer seek outside approval. I will no longer seek approval from authority figures for my self-worth. I will no longer fear allowing people to know my true and fear and weaknesses. By embracing and understanding my own abandonment issues, I will become whole and be attracted to others who are the same. I will seek acceptance with who I am, where I am, and how I am doing right here, right now. I will allow myself to be playful with those I trust and feel safe. I will develop an inner circle of people I will let in to help me succeed and support me in my time of need. No more self-isolation. I selfishly was keeping my friends who love and care for me out. I wouldn't let my friends help me. They wanted to. They wanted to, and I wouldn't let them. And when I finally started letting them, they literally said, "Why haven't you let us help you before?" They were all upset and mad at me because I wouldn't let them in. Now I do. Because I couldn't let people in before because they weren't going to stay in my life. So why bother? Now my friends stay in my life because they they know Bill, the real Bill, not the Bill I pretended to be. I used to have a shirt that said "People are a lot of work." They were a lot of work. I had to do a lot of work to be the person I thought they wanted me to be, instead of just being myself. I will accept people for who they are now, not who I want them to be. This will stop me from fixing them and simply accept them. I have to be this. I have to do the same thing I want people to be. I have to accept my friends who they are, and they have to accept me for who I am. I don't have to change them. Don't have to fix them. They don't have to fix me. They don't have to change me. We can just be, you know, an interrelationship. I need to be willing to not be afraid of success. My truth is to be owned, not avoided because I do not wish to be abandoned. My true friends will celebrate my success. I have friends who literally would turn because I got successful because for whatever reason, their own issues got in the way. So I didn't want to upset them. So not to accept them, I made myself small. I kept myself small. I will drill down to my childhood traumas and their cause and effect, and with my fellow travelers, free myself from my self-imposed wall of protective behaviors against harm from others that applied as a child, but not as an adult. For the longest time, those things were keeping me away from happiness. And I had to tear those walls down. I will no longer fear failure or expect it. I used to expect failure. I wanted failure. Chaos, drama, that's what I know. For things to go well, I can't handle that because as a child, things never went well. If possible, pause to drill down. Oh, sorry. I will no longer fear failure or expect it, nor will I self-sabotage in an attempt to control the damage of the failure I believe I foresee. That was the other thing I used to do. Sabotage. It's going to fail. Things are going to screw up, so let me control the screw up. So self-sabotage. I will, instead, I will expect only the best and believe that any stumble is a learning experience to help me grow. And then I wrote down, I will listen to my body. When my body sends me a trigger message, if possible, pause to drill down to the cause and effect of my childhood trauma and my adult reaction to this connection. If I cannot do this, pause and take no action until I have a safe moment to reflect. The promises, the affirmations I created in the last exercise, which was my affirmations, was to strengthen and nurture me, my inner child. I pay attention when my inner child talks to me through my body. I stop, pause, and review the actions that are leading to the discomfort, then drill down to the childhood trauma that is connected to it. When I crave the attention from someone I care about and don't get it, I can go into an emotional bottom. The issue of rejection abandonment kicks in. To prevent this from happening, I have to maintain boundaries that communicate this person has other people in their life, not just you. Having expectations, projection causes self-imposed pain. Build a larger network of people to react to and talk to. Draining people are to be avoided, but helping when asked is encouraged. Give and take, but not against your own self-interest. For the longest time, I used to be whatever someone else wanted me to do. Even if I had something already planned, I would drop what I was doing to do what they want. Okay, so I was always acting against my own self-interest. In my new roles in work, personal, and friends, I'm allowing myself to be seen as I truly am. The response, for the most part, has been positive. It has allowed me to no longer be small, but right size. There's still uncomfortability, but with practice and real encounters, that uncomfortability will leave. I can go on and on like this, but what it comes down to is that ACA has allowed me to begin a process, going through the workbooks and everything else, doing the work, talking to people, being honest with myself, expressing my fears and not enduring them, but actually embracing them in a sense of understanding what they're all about. These are the things that are helping me become healthy, okay, become whole. Okay, I don't run from these things anymore. I don't wish to have them, okay, but I have to understand them. And understanding is the freedom. Through the understanding of my childhood trauma, understanding how the childhood trauma affected me allows me to grow. Listening to my inner child, appreciating the things that are going on in my life. These are the paths to happiness, okay? To be true to myself, to do the things you want to do that bring you joy, to be with people who encourage you and to accept you now for who you are today. I do not have to show people anything, just be who I want to be, but be all that I can be. In doing this, I free myself from the limiting, don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. I embrace my gifts. In doing so, I will attract others just like myself. They will not abandon me. They will accept me. They will share with me the things we have in common. I will create a community of love without conditions. The unconditional love and acceptance I did not get as a child, I will get now as an adult. Take down the walls I used to protect myself from pain. These walls are no longer helpful, but they're actually creating the pain that I was trying to avoid. I have to stop reproducing the abandonment of my childhood. I have to be something different, be whole. These are things I wrote down in my book. Okay. I can go on here, but one of the things I have to do is understand the things I've done, understanding that I can heal and rewrite the script of my life and have better outcomes to my relationships. All I ever wanted was to have healthy relationships. Trust, love, understand, grow, and be fearless and move toward love and focus on healing yourself rather than others. The past no longer affects my future or controls my daily living. These are all the things I was looking forward to, and ACA has done these things for me. I've allowed people to be there for me. I've allowed people to be present for me. I allowed people to see me at my worst, to understand my fears, to open up when I have anxiety, to let go of things that I felt I couldn't show other people. I learned that in these rooms. I learned to show my feelings. When I sat here and cried and sobbed and carried on, no one judged me. Instead, people understood me. They were there to comfort me. They were there to show me love. They were there to show me understanding. These rooms have opened up doors I never even knew were closed. I never even knew they existed. My life was pretty much one thing and one thing only. Actually, it was about how do I maneuver through life? How do I stop getting hurt? What's the least I can do so I won't get hurt? That's not how you live your life. But that's exactly how I was living, in fear of being hurt by everyone and everything in every situation. Now, I stay away from those situations. If I think there's a situation, I'm going to go into two things. If it's something I can't avoid, then I realize, I say, well, how is this going to affect me in 6 months? Probably not at all. Can I handle this for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours? Of course I can. Do what you need to do. Bookmark it. Sorry, bookend it. If I go into a situation like that, I talk to another fellow traveler. After the situation is over, I talk to a fellow traveler. If I need to be in a situation I can't avoid, if I can bring a fellow traveler with me, even better. But the bottom line is, I don't live in fear of things I cannot control. I do live with hope. I do seek out love. I do seek out relationships that are not conditional or transactional. What I seek out is people who accept me for who I am now, who embrace me, who encourage me, who seek me out when they cannot find me. I don't have to chase people anymore to find love and encouragement. I now just walk along side by side with these individuals because we're fellow travelers. My name is Bill. I'm an adult child. I'm a fellow traveler, and I have survived a childhood trauma that caused me a great deal of pain and emotional disturbance. I thank you all for allowing me to heal. I thank you all for allowing me to grow. I thank you all for allowing me to be my true self. God bless you all. I love you all. And I think that's enough for now. I want to hear from the rest of you.